Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Monguli Show. We've got a great episode for you this week. We're going to be talking about Barbenheimer, which I saw this weekend. I know I'm a week late, but that's how life goes sometimes when you've got a family. So we're going to get into that not right away. We're going to wait a little bit. We'll talk about the movies spoiler-free at first, and then I'll get into my spoiler review of both of those films. And we'll discuss that later. I will have a logo at the bottom letting you know that there are spoilers, so you will not ruin it for yourself if you haven't seen those movies yet and you're still looking forward to them. We're also going to be talking about Secret Invasion, the Marvel show that wrapped up recently, as well as Mission Impossible 6 or 7, Dead Reckoning. I don't know. There's a lot of Mission Impossible movies, and they all really blend together, and that's kind of what my review is of it. So we'll wait to get there. I won't spoil it because, quite frankly, I don't know that I could. It's pretty much exactly what you expect it to be. That's almost my review right there. But we will say I am alone this week, so we'll just get straight into it. And this week, I'm going to break down, as I do every week, some of the stuff that I've been watching recently, which includes I finally got around to seeing The Matrix. Resurrections, not the original Matrix. I saw that in theaters back in the 90s. But Resurrections is the one that just came out, I think, 2 years ago, right during COVID. Really weird movie. And I have to say, I don't know the entire story behind how this movie was made and what was going on, but I'm pretty sure it's an insanely meta movie. If you've seen it, you know that one of the big points of it is that these studios, Warner Brothers, because they actually use their own studio, have to start at the beginning. Keanu Reeves is a program developer making a video game, and he's made the video game The Matrix, and it's insanely popular, revolutionized video games, and that's where the movie starts off. He's been having a lot of weird dreams, placing himself in the video game. He doesn't know what's right or what's not, what's actually real life and what isn't. He's seeing Neil Patrick Harris as his therapist. It's surprisingly, I really liked this part of the movie. It was really interesting that, like, what was real, what wasn't real. You actually start the movie off with a recreation of the Trinity scene from the very beginning of the very first Matrix, but it's not Trinity, but it's clearly close and it's supposed to be. And the agents aren't Agent Smith, but they're saying all the same things. Like, it's a weird, what do you call that phenomenon? The Mandela effect. It's kind of like a weird Mandela effect going on where you're like, this is really close to what I remember, but it's definitely not what I remember. And it's really kind of fun to watch that and to see what's going on, what is happening. Why does Keanu Reeves thinks that he's in the Matrix when he's clearly not? He's just a program developer. Or is he being fooled to be back in the Matrix? This is actually my favorite part of the movie, was maybe the first 40 minutes or so, when it's just him fighting his own battle, fighting his demons, not sure what's real, what isn't, what to believe, what not to believe. I actually really like this part of it. Now that I've said that, I can say what they're alluding to is that his, they call him his partner, but he's acting much more like a boss. And he's saying, we have to go back. We have to remake the Matrix. Warner Brothers is forcing us to do it. We don't have a choice. We have to make a fourth Matrix movie. Or a video game, sorry. Which I think is exactly what Warner Brothers actually did to the Wachowski sisters, is be like, no, we're going to make a Matrix movie with or without you. Do you want to be a part of it? And it was kind of up to them whether or not they actually wanted to be, and they decided, well, one of them decided, yes, I do want to be part of this, and the other one decided not to be, and so be it. But it was really weird that they brought so much of that into the movie itself. Like, they really went meta on this movie, and this part of the movie I really enjoyed. I actually really liked that. I think that it worked out quite well. The rest of the movie, like, once you actually get into the Matrix, I couldn't care less. It got really dull, really samey. One of the things the video game developers actually says is, like, how are we supposed to, like, we have to revolutionize gaming again. And that's a really high bar. Like, Matrix legitimately revolutionized science fiction and potentially movies in general. And you're just being asked, like, do it again. Like, what? Most people don't even get to revolutionize something once, and you want us to do it twice in the same genre with the same characters? No, that's never going to work. That's never going to happen. So I liked that at first, at least, they were really subverting expectations, going in a very different direction. I would have been super happy with 2 hours of that movie. When I first went to see Everything Everywhere All at Once, I watched it with my buddy Jesse, and one of the not complaints. One of the comments he made right out of the theater was like, he just wanted to watch 2 hours of the main characters running a laundromat and trying to do their taxes. And I couldn't wrap my head around that. I was like, what are you talking about? This movie was amazing. Everything crazy that happened in it. You want to get rid of all that? I don't understand. I understand this. I understand with The Matrix what he's saying. Like, no, I kind of just want to watch 2 hours of Keanu Reeves trying to figure out, like, did I create The Matrix? Did The Matrix create me? Is this real life? Is that real life? What's happening? I thought it was really, really smart. Unfortunately, because of course it does, the movie devolves into just really bland action, really nonsensical scenes, really beautiful, but like, why the heck are we here scenery? Like, there's a well in the middle of a forest for no reason whatsoever that they just hang out at. It really, really lost me. And it went really downhill, and I can't recommend it, unfortunately. They really should have stopped making Matrix movies after the first one. Like, there's a couple of interesting concepts after that, but for the most part, if they'd left it at one, it would have been a revolutionary movie that was really, really well regarded. And instead, they just kind of sunk it into the ground with just awful sequel after awful sequel. And I don't know. I liked the first little bit of this movie, but it really lost me hard. Me and my wife were both just like, what is even happening? There's a French character muttering at one point. Like, they had some cool ideas and they just didn't follow through with any of them. And the movie feels like a horrible mismatch, unfortunately. Speaking of horrible mismatches, Secret Invasion finally ended. It was a 6-episode show starring Nick Fury and the war with the Skrulls. For those who don't know, first off, I'm talking about the MCU, obviously, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But for those who don't know, Skrulls are shape-shifting aliens. We've seen them in Captain Marvel and in a couple of other roles and just very, very small cameos. This TV show, the ads looked kind of interesting. The premise is great. It's based off a comic book, and I knew they weren't going to do a one-for-one of the comic book. That was a given. But, man, you could have tried for something. Like, the show is just hollow and disappointing and ended in such a bland way that, like, I don't even know if it matters to watch it. Like I'm a big MCU fan, and I'm straight up telling you, I don't think you need to watch this going forward. Like, I think you will be able to make sense of everything in the Marvel Cinematic Universe going forward without this. In fact, I think they did that very much on purpose, where, like, the Marvels has Nick Fury in it. I doubt he's going to reference this movie at all, or the TV show at all. Maybe he'll reference that there are Skrulls, but I don't think we're seeing Emilia Clarke's character anytime soon. I don't think we're going to hear the name Gravix for a long time. I could be wrong. I have no idea. I don't have any mystical balls that tell me anything. Crystal balls. But this show overall, disappointing is the best word that I can come up with for it. There's so much potential in a storyline with spies where half the spies can change shape. And we see in the last episode that the Skrulls can't even tell when a Skrull has changed shape in front of them. At one point, spoilers, by the way, maybe I should have that in layup, but whatever. At one point, Emilia Clarke's character, Gaia, I want to say, is impersonating Nick Fury. It's the only time somebody thinks to actually impersonate Nick Fury, which is mind-boggling to me. And she's impersonating it to Gravix, the main bad guy, and he is treating him exactly like it's Nick Fury. So we do kind of get a scene between Gravix and Nick Fury, except it's not Nick Fury, which is just really frustrating, but we'll get to that. The point is, Skrulls can't tell when Skrulls are wearing other people's makeup on or other people's faces. So you could really play with that and have people really mess with each other. And instead, every Skrull just looks exactly like they're supposed to. They're either Skrull form or the one human they can do, and that's it. And even the one human they can do, with one exception, which is Colonel Rhodes, which is War Machine, with one exception, they're all just random British people. What the heck is going on? Like, why? Who thought that would be a really good idea? You have one scene in the first episode where Graphic is walking through a crowd, and as he's walking through the crowd, he's shape-changing constantly. That's a cool idea. Let's work with that. Nope, that's the only time you see it. 5 episodes later, and it's never happened once. Why? Why is that? Oh, it's frustrating. Then you have a really cool concept in the last episode where once people know about the Skrulls, the President of the United States makes a special address saying, let's get rid of these people. Let's get them off our planet. Anybody not born on Earth is a hostile combatant. Take them out. And you see Americans or just humans in general killing anybody they think is a Skrull. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it isn't. They were killing innocent people. That would have been a really interesting place for the show to start. Or maybe that could be like episode 3. And then going forward, you have this like tension of like people are just killing other people. Like they're killing their neighbors because they think that, oh, they might be a spy. They might be a Skrull. This is Cold War stuff. This is like, they might be a Russian spy stuff from the 1970s and 80s. And we don't get any of that. We get like a little montage at the end for like 30 seconds at best. We have Skrulls trying to infiltrate Colonel Rhodes, as I said, to try and convince the president to do something that he doesn't want to do, that she shouldn't do. Why don't you just turn into the president? You're a Skrull. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. You've got it's just wasted potential everywhere you look, and it's really frustrating. I know it's just a TV show. I get it. People will be like, "Oh, calm down." If you don't like how I'm analyzing this, you're not going to like how deep I go on Barbie. I'll just tell you that right now. But it's just, I really wish they had more of a budget for the TV shows and they trusted their audience a little bit more, because you could have gone so much more interesting, or you could have gone so much more bombastic. And this does neither, and it's really boring. Well, it leaves him, it's hollow. It's really hollow, I should say. It's not necessarily boring. I didn't hate watching it. It wasn't painful. It just, you're done, and you're kind of like, why? Why did we bother? Why did we spend all that money? Apparently the show cost something. I could be wrong. I just heard this on a podcast. The show cost something like $200 million to make for 6 episodes. That's insane when nothing happens, when there's no status quo shift, when there's nothing out of this. You're like, holy crap, you have to watch this because X happens. No X happens. Emilia Clarke becomes a Super Skrull. Maria Hill dies, although I don't even necessarily believe that. And Fury may or may not have a wife that's a Skrull. That's it. You're caught up. That's all you need to know. Moving on. So disappointing. Speaking of, not disappointments, but just other things that I've seen recently, I also watched Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning last night. Now, I've seen every Mission Impossible movie at least once, some of them multiple times, but not for a while. I enjoy the franchise well enough. I think Bond movies are fine, and this is basically what it is. It's just a spy movie. I don't think they're bad. I just cannot, for the life of me, tell you which one's which. Like, I can remember some of the big set pieces with him hanging on the side of a plane, or him driving a motorbike over a mountain, stuff like that, climbing up the giant tower. But I couldn't tell you, if with gun to my head, which one was which, except for the first movie. The first movie, I could tell you exactly which one that is. That's the, hovering above the platform at the bottom. But other than that, they all kind of blend together. And I saw this movie yesterday, and probably within a week, I won't be able to tell you what the plot is. Now, I'm not going to spoil this movie. It's only been in theaters for about a week or so. So if you want to go see it, 100%, you should. It is a lot of fun. I will give it that. It looks good on the big screen. There is, I think it's in the trailer, so there's a train scene, I'll just say, that was actually really cool. I really liked that. It was pretty clearly green screened, but I still enjoyed it. The jumping off the mountain was cool. Like, Tom Cruise, say what you will about him, and I know people don't necessarily love him, but like, he goes for it in everything. Like, I don't think I've ever seen that guy in his 40-ish year career phone in a performance. Like, he is going all out for the audience, and I don't know. I don't have a negative thing to say about him as a movie star. As a person, that's a different podcast. But for movie star Tom Cruise, he performs, or he delivers. So it's a really great movie. Haley Atwell is playing the female lead. I thought she did a great job. I think it's worth checking out. But don't ask me to tell you what the plot is, because honestly, like, I don't want to ruin it here just for a joke, but like, realistically, within 3 days, I won't be able to tell you what the plot is. It's Mission Impossible. It's Ethan Hunt saving the world, except he only half saves the world because it's part 1. Jesse wants to, or J.A. Alexander wants to see Gary Busey as a Skrull. I would take that. That would be kind of worth the price of admission. For the record, I saw Mission Impossible with J.A. Alexander last night, and he's saying I'm going to ruin this name. Palm Klemtyoff is amazing in Mission Impossible 7. He says it's 7. I don't know. Dead Reckoning. So that is what I was looking at this week. Unfortunately, I don't have anybody to bounce anything off of, so all you have are the movies and shows that I watched. I wanted to watch Futurama. I unfortunately didn't get around to it yet. I believe this is week 2, so there's 2 episodes out on Hulu. I did watch a whole bunch of Harley Quinn, but again, kind of like Mission Impossible, I was like watching it while painting, so it all just kind of bled together. It's a show that is amusing enough to have on in the background, but I don't think I could just sit and watch it. It's kind of just crass for the sake of being crass, And while it is humorous at times, it's also a lot. So if it's not your sense of humor, I get it. That's fine. I do think the relationship developing between Harley Quinn and Ivy is actually kind of fun and spread out over a long enough time that it actually feels natural. It's not just like episode 1, here, shock value. So that was actually cool. I do enjoy the show, but again, for me personally, it's just something to have on in the background. With the writer's strike and the actor's strike continuing on, there's not really a whole lot of news to go into. I was hoping to pick my buddy Adam's brain on this one, but unfortunately, he's out watching Barbenheimer right now, so he's not able to join us. But Donald Glover and his brother Steven have been tasked with writing, and obviously Donald's going to perform in Lando, a TV show based in the Star Wars universe of Lando Calrissian, originally portrayed by Billy D. Williams back in The Empire Strikes Back in 79, I think it was, and then reprised by Donald Glover in Solo. A lot of people, myself included, would say that he was the best part of the Solo movie. I think that this is kind of interesting. I believe that Donald and Stephen Glover are the duo that brought us Atlanta, which is a very funny show about a up-and-coming rapper in Atlanta trying to make it work, and Donald Glover wants to be his manager. I admit I didn't finish the show. I'm still working my way through it. It is a funny show. It's just one of those ones that you kind of watch like 4 episodes, then forget about it for a little while and come back and watch a few more episodes. Apparently, we're still on the Malice thing from last week. Jay Alexander recommends watching it. It's a little hidden gem. I think that it can stay hidden. It is the rough surrounded by diamonds in Alan Sorkin's career. So unfortunately, I don't have much more on Lando. It's just being started. Obviously, they can't be writing it yet because the writer's strike is happening, and I have to assume if he's writing this thing for Star Wars, he will be part of the the Writers Guild. So it's more that he just got the job, and that it's something to look forward to. And I actually am looking forward to that, as I've loved Donald Glover in Community. I really enjoy him in Atlanta. I think that he was really good in Solo. And I am interested to see what he'll do with this show. Hopefully they'll allow it to have a little bit more humor than, say, like Andor, which I think literally had none. So that would be great. I have no more news than that on this. Unfortunately, it is literally just an announcement that it is coming. Other than that, I think we'll jump straight into trailers. This might be a little bit of a shorter episode. Who knows? Depends on how long I ramble on about Barbie. As you can tell, I don't have any pink to wear, so I did change all the lights in the room pink. So that's fun. So let's go and check out this Loki trailer. I've not seen it yet. You're going to get... we're going to take a look at it first for the first time together and see what we think. I really liked Loki Season 1. I'm really looking forward to this. I hope they bring Sylvie back in a big way. I hope they don't necessarily make them a couple, though. I'd be very okay with them being frenemies. That's perfectly fine with me. So, let's check it out.
Hobie? Hello? We have a little bit of a situation we wanted to run by you.
Tobias! Wow! Great to see you again!
Nice! Ki Kwan.
That's what's been happening.
Wow! Time slipping.
Wait, you know that?
Yeah.
You've seen that?
Yeah.
Can you fix that?
No. It's impossible to time slip in the TVA.
I know, but we just saw it happen.
Yeah.
I'm so glad he's getting roles again.
Pulled through time between the past and the present.
Hello?
If what I saw is true, there's nothing to stand between this world and utter destruction.
Only one way to find out. Little good old-fashioned legwork. Listen, we have different styles. You're a man of action, which is fine. I take a more slow, deliberate, cerebral approach. It's really goodbye.
A lot of subtle green in the background. Hinting at his character.
It's up to us to save this place.
Is this cracked?
You good?
Whatever we do, we're playing God.
We are gods. But how do you choose who lives Make the hard choice.
Nice.
It's him.
You better run!
War is on its way. Come on, you're the god of mischief.
Always have been. Always will be.
Oh, that was good.
A little over the top, don't you think?
I thought it was spot on.
October 6th. Oh, just after my birthday. Little present for me. That's wonderful. I have to say I'm totally an easy mark for Marvel things, and despite the fact that they keep burning me over and over again recently, I just keep getting excited for them. I'm excited for the Marvels. Loki 2 looks fantastic. I just went on for like 10 minutes about how awful Secret Invasion was, or at least how lackluster it was, and that's all it needed. Just brought me right back. Linda is actually agreeing with Linda Unhinged Music Production is agreeing with Jay Alexander. Malice is a true thrilling gem. I might need to give it a second try. I don't know. Maybe it's because I just was expecting more from Aaron Sorkin movie, and I should just be taking it at face value. Face value, my goodness. It is just a great thriller from the 90s. So I will have to try that again. My brother left it with me. He didn't even want to take it back to Winnipeg with him, so I do have it now. So I can go back and take a look. Anyways, as far as the Loki trailer goes, we did get Sophie exactly like I was hoping we would. And quite frankly, I knew that we would, but I still just wanted to see her. And we got a little bit of Jonathan Majors back as Kang, or He Who Remains. I can't say it enough. If he actually is found guilty of what he did in the States, that's horrific. I hope that it's not true. There have been rumors coming out that it's not true. It sounds like his legal team is still pretty confident that he's not done what he is being charged with. If that's the case, I really hope we see more of him. He is a phenomenal actor, but only if he's innocent, right? Like, I think we can kind of get on board with probably shouldn't be rewarding people for being awful people. That said, I'm going to, you're innocent until proven guilty, and I'm going to go on that assumption. And with that, I am happy that he is in this. I like that you got just a little hint of him. I don't necessarily want him to be in every episode or anything like that, but just like bring him in for like importance. Like as we saw at the end of, was it Ant-Man with that little Loki bit where he's just like terrified just seeing him. He's like, oh my God, there he is. That's him. That was perfect. That's all I need. I just need to have a little gravitas to the character. I want them to bring him back to being a strong villain. I think the fact that in Ant-Man he lost to ants is really dumb, and I didn't love that choice. If this is going to be your next big bad of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, let him be bad. Let him be the big awful that he's supposed to be. And somebody like Loki quaking with fear at the sight of him, I think is a great thing. The show itself looks really fun. It's going to be traveling through a lot of different set pieces. It looks like they might have a bit of a bigger budget than they did the first time around, so they can kind of go all out a little bit more. Hopefully there's a bit more practical effects in where they're going, and they don't just use that what's it called? The cylindrical room they use for Star Wars. The imagination, the voice, somebody's going to help me out with that, I'm sure. I would love to see them actually, like that Western that they went to, that old time, if they actually built that scene or at least use an old set, that would be way cooler. I think that show looks great. Coming in October, 2 months from now, 3 months from now. Time's hard. I don't know. Anyways. Yeah, so with that being said, shall we get right into Barbie? Don't unfortunately have a whole lot else to go over this week, but yeah, let's do it. Let's jump straight into Barbie. I will do Barbie and Oppenheimer really quickly without spoiling anything. I'll just give you my initial thoughts, and then I'll go more into spoiler territory. I did the Barbenheimer thing on Saturday with my wife. We did go and see both movies. We saw Barbie at 10 a.m., and that took us till noon. Took some time, went and got some lunch, ran a few errands, went and saw Oppenheimer at 2, and that took us till dinner. Barbie is 2 hours long. It's rated PG, and I don't know who this movie is for. Like, obviously, that was dumb. This movie is for women, obviously. Not to say men can't like it. I actually enjoyed it, for the most part. When I say I don't know who this movie is for, what I mean is there's some very, very, very stupid lowbrow humor. I'm looking at you, Will Ferrell, where they're doing like Scooby-Doo style of like hijinks, where they're like running right past each other and whatnot. And it's just eye-rollingly stupid. There is some slightly dirty humor in the sense that you've got a bunch of guys saying they're going to beach each other off. Clever play on words. There's some really, really good humor. There's some like legitimately laugh out loud moments in this movie that I was actually probably in our theater, which had maybe like 20 people in it. I might have been laughing the loudest at some of these times. I legitimately found it funny at times. But then there's also like existential dread in a lot of these scenes. And you're just like, what? Like, you've got humor that you're going to sell to kids. You've got inappropriate humor that you probably don't want your kids repeating on the street. And then you've got like existential dread moments that your kids just be like, what is going on, mommy? Like, I don't 100% know which age bracket or what category this movie is for. If they're trying to make it for everybody, I think I can't say they're missing the mark. The movie's doing absolutely phenomenally. It's the hit of the summer, 100%. As of yesterday, the movie had made $775,000 off of its $100,000 budget. That's insane. That's 2 weeks of revenue. It is a phenomenal hit. It is steamrolling everything else. I bet it's going to beat Mario, which is, I think, the biggest hit this year so far at just over, I think, 1.2 billion or something like that. $775,000 in 2 weeks is crazy. I was at Mission Impossible last night, and the theaters were packed with pink people everywhere. People were coming into the theater wearing pink at 10 o'clock at night, starting the movie at 10 o'clock at night. Like, it's a hit. People are coming to check it out. That's awesome. I'm so happy for it. That being said, I had some issues with it. It is a lot of fun. It's very funny. It's a little bit preachy at times. And I fully admit I'm a white cisgendered male. Like, I get that I am not the core demographic for this movie. That being said, I went to see it with my wife. She really enjoyed it, but she shared some of the same criticisms that I had with it. I asked her if she wanted to join me for this, and she was a little bit nervous about doing it live, but is tempted to do it if I can pre-record this. So check back with the channel. Maybe I'll have a conversation with me and her about this. But for right here, right now, it's just me. And I found some of the moments very preachy and very eye-rolly. Like, just kind of like, okay, here we go. And not necessarily the parts you might think that I have. If you've seen the movie, you know that all the Kens all the men really are portrayed to be kind of idiotic. I didn't bump into that. That's kind of what they want to get at. They're trying to say, like, women have been portrayed as being nothing but arm candy and bimbos in a lot of movies. Let's flip the script. How do you guys feel about that? A lot of people on the internet are getting upset at that. You're supposed to. That's the point. You're supposed to not like that. That's how people are representing your entire gender. Do better. But that being said, like, there was a significant part of this movie where it felt like Ken kind of took over the narrative. Like, you have a Barbie movie, and for like 40 minutes, half an hour at least, Ken is now the main character. It felt weird. And like, he's supposed to be the villain, but you're also supposed to feel sympathetic towards him. We'll get into that more when I can actually describe more what I'm talking about. But there are parts of this movie that really didn't land well for me. And not necessarily for the reason you might think that a white male on the internet would be. The other thing is, I have said many times, if you've been paying attention, if you've been watching this show for any length of time, I will follow you down any rabbit hole you want. If you want to tell me that a DeLorean can travel through time, I am in. But you have to follow your own rules, or I am out hard. This movie has no idea what its rules are. The universe operates so sporadically. Yes, I realize I am going so in deep on this Barbie movie, and I get that that's weird. Whatever. You're here to watch the review. You have to have some love of movies or of me. Either way, strap in. The movie doesn't understand what it is. There are scenes where you are... maybe I should wait for the spoiler. I can probably do that better in the spoiler review. Point being, I enjoyed this movie. If you think you're going to enjoy this movie, you probably will. If you think you're not going to enjoy this movie, you definitely won't. I don't know how to say it clearer than that. Moving on to Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer is a Christopher Nolan movie, which right off the bat means that it's going to be a hit. People are going to go see it. It is not the hit that Barbie is, but it is still a hit in its own right. It was a $100,000 movie that is so far up to $400,000. That is an incredible return on investment. And again, it's only been 2 weeks. I think a big chunk of that is the fact that it's kind of merged with Barbenheimer. Like, you're probably getting these people who are seeing it because it's a cultural phenomenon to do both in one day, more so than because people are like, I really want to see Oppenheimer. I'm sure there are a lot of people who do want to see Oppenheimer who have no interest in Barbie. But because it's a 3-hour long movie, because it's rated R, a lot of theaters are playing it less. Like, the theater, when I went to see it on Saturday, was playing it at one time in the entire day. I was blown away by that. It's only, that was a bad pun. It was only its second weekend, and it's already down to one time a day. And it's a hit. It's not a Barbie-sized hit, but it's a hit. It's doing very well. So that was a little surprising to me. This movie is 3 hours of people talking. If you tuned out at that, you're probably right to. Like, there is one explosion, as you can probably guess. It's the Trinity test, and that's it. There's no car scenes. There's no guns, I don't believe. There's no action, and it's exactly what it's supposed to be. It is a tale about Oppenheimer. It is set in 2 different time zones, so you've got in color. The movie doesn't tell you, like, the movie does nothing to hold your hand. So it doesn't tell you what time frame you're in. You kind of have to put that together by just knowing history a little bit. But I think the movie starts kind of in like the mid to late 30s and goes right up to about 45, 46-ish. And then it also has a black and white scene, which is like, I'm guessing, early 50s. And it's the trial, the witch hunt trial, trying to take Oppenheimer down and prove that he's actually not who he says he is, and he's actually a spy and stuff like that. That's Robert Downey Jr.'s part of the movie, and he shines in that role. He is so good. He disappears into this role in the best possible way. And I'll get into this in the spoiler portion of it a little bit better, but there's some scenes with him that are some of my favorite in the entire movie. As far as the actual color stuff, you see Oppenheimer talk about going back to school. I don't think you actually see him in university, and then graduating, becoming a professor, becoming part of this like think tank lab. You see him associating with the Communist Party, the American Communist Party, which I'll admit I don't know that much about, but he's being sort of courted by them, but just kind of refuses to sign up, just will not actually join the party. And good for him that he doesn't, because it would definitely hurt his career later on if he did. And then he gets contracted by the military. Does this count as spoilers? This is just history. Anyways, he makes the atomic bomb. All of that was really interesting, but it's just talking for 3 hours with like a 5-minute explosion in there. That being said, Christopher Nolan is an artist of his craft, and the tension of this entire movie is at 11. The music is at 11. The acting is at 11. Everything is turned up as high as it can go, mostly for its benefit, but a little bit for its detriment. The music being loud is phenomenal. I highly recommend watching. This is probably the first movie I've ever said you should go see it in a theater for the sound, not for the visuals. I understand the explosion looks amazing, and I understand that they actually created a new technology with black and white IMAX. They've never had that before. They actually created that for this movie. All that being said, the sound is incredible. As I was watching this movie, I was like, I will never be able to watch this at home because my wife will not let me have it be this loud, and yet it needs to be this loud. It is overpowering in the best way, and it's exactly what it needs to be. The difference between something like this and, say, Tenet, which is Christopher Nolan's last movie, where I thought the sound editing was actually not very good. In Tenet, you have like a boat scene where the boat is racing, and all you can really hear is the boat, despite the fact that they're trying to have a serious conversation while on the boat, and it is impossible to hear exactly what they're saying without straining really hard. This movie does the same thing, and sorry, so that was very frustrating. This movie does the same thing, but at times where you can tell he's being overwhelmed or getting really angry, and it's on purpose that he's kind of tuning the world out and all he's hearing is noise vibrating. It's really, really smart and really well done, and I actually enjoy it in this movie, despite the fact that it's the same technique he used before. The actual implementation of it, I think, really, really works. This is a movie you want to have loud, and the movie theaters allow you to do that, and it's worth going to the theaters to hear it, which is a weird recommendation, but it's true. The acting, everybody is bringing their absolute A game. You've got so many A-list actors in this, and people who should be A-listers after this. I think Cillian Murphy is at least going to be nominated. I think Robert Downey Jr. should at least be nominated. Emily Blunt is really good in this role. She has one scene in a courtroom, and I won't go any further than that, other than to say it might be my favorite scene of the movie. Like, she just steals it for that 2 minutes. So incredibly good. Florence Pugh is amazing, a littler role, but still very, very good. Matt Damon brings it like we know Matt Damon can. Like, I can't say enough good things. I could list actors for 10 minutes. I wouldn't be able to list one where I was like, that performance was weak, and I wouldn't, it would just be me naming actors and saying how good they are. I would just be gushing. It's phenomenally acted. It's well developed, directed. It sounds insane. Like, this is a great art movie. Flip side of that is it is 3 hours of talking. There are points where my brain is just like, I need a break. And because this movie is out on 11 the entire time, there is no release valve. There is no point where you can just, okay, let's have a romantic scene for a minute and I can just give myself a break and allow my body to rest for a little bit. Even the romantic scenes are stressful. Like, again, it's a history because there's spoilers. I won't get into it. Even the romantic scenes are stressful. The scenes with the military are stressful. The scenes where he's being accused are stressful. The court scenes are stressful. The bomb's going to go off. Duh. But like, is the bomb going to go off? Stressful. Like, everything about this movie is high tension. That sounds like it should be praised, but 3 hours of high tension, you leave exhausted. I had to go to a friend's house and play games after this and was happy to do it, but I was just tired. Like, I could have easily just gone home and laid down. The only other time I felt this physically exhausted after watching a movie was Whiplash. Whiplash is a movie about drumming. It shouldn't be on par with an atomic bomb, and yet it is so well crafted that you just, like, I had to untense my hands at the end of the movie. Absolutely phenomenal. But this isn't about that. Oppenheimer, I think it could have used, maybe not like humor. Like, I definitely don't want them to throw in some like MCU style humor where it's just campy and you roll your eyes, but like, give you a couple of moments to calm down and just like, something. And they don't. That being said, I think it's a phenomenal movie. I think it's absolutely worth checking out on the big screen. If it's kind of like Barbie, if you think you're up for a 3-hour biopic done by Christopher Nolan, it's a phenomenal movie that you will probably thoroughly enjoy. If that sounds boring to you, it's not for you. It just isn't. There's nothing I can say that convince you, and you probably don't want to be convinced. It's going to be incredible for the people who like it and really dull for people who don't, and you're going to see a huge divide of that on the internet of people being like, Christopher Nolan's overrated versus people saying it's a masterpiece. I fall somewhere not even in between. I'm just like a little bit shy of masterpiece. I think it's incredibly good. I don't know how often I'm going to rewatch it compared to other Christopher Nolan movies that I watch on a fairly regular basis. Cool? Cool. All right, let's throw up the spoiler trailer and actually get into the heart of these movies. Spoilers? Spoilers. All right, back to Barbie. Because it's pink. Because why not? You only get to be Barbie once in a while, right? I only get to be Barbie once in a while. All right. Barbie. If you're seeing this, I'm going to assume that you've seen Barbie. I cannot disagree with that statement enough. Linda says Tenet should replace Citizen Kane on the AFI Top 100. Do you think Tenet should be number 1? I think maybe Citizen Kane isn't number 1 anymore, but it's in the top 3 or something. Citizen Kane's amazing. I could talk great things about Citizen Kane for a very long time. Tenet is at best a James Bond movie with cool mechanics. Looks incredible. I liked it. I'm not gonna say it wasn't my cup of tea, but I don't know. Anyways, that was off. Barbie. As I was saying earlier about Barbie, it's going to be really weird for me talking about this. I was really hoping my wife would join me, but so be it. The movie's got really weirdly mixed messages and is kind of all over the place in tone. It's very silly, and it's supposed to be. And I think that aesthetically, it's 100% on point. Like, I didn't play with Barbies, but I do have an older sister, so I definitely saw them around the house. I've got young girls. I've seen them in the house. It's phenomenal what they've done for the set pieces and stuff like that. All the different Barbies they were able to bring in. There were definitely Barbies they didn't call too much attention to that I remember my kids playing with or seeing in the store asking for. Like the dog that walked and pooped. My kid wanted that so badly for Christmas, and I couldn't bring myself to buy my kid a dog that poops. But like, just things like that are so brilliantly placed, and they don't feel like it's a commercial so much as they're just showing like nostalgia, right? Like they're just bringing back nostalgia, being like, oh yeah, I remember that. The dream houses are all like cheap plastic, no walls, just like pillars and floors. Exactly what these toys are. Like it's so funny, and they bring good references to that with things like, oh, you know, Barbie doesn't walk downstairs. You just kind of place Barbie where she's supposed to go. All that's really, really fun. But then they come down into like she starts getting flat foot and celluloid and having thoughts of like, what's death going to be like? And you're kind of like, what is going on? Like, what's happening? And they describe it as being like whoever is playing with her is having these dark thoughts. Okay. So as I said, I will follow you down whatever path you want, but it has to make sense and you have to follow by your own rules. So whoever is playing with stereotypical Barbie is growing up, obviously, getting away from their toys and kind of starting to have thoughts that, you know, every little kid has eventually as they start growing up. But then you find out that it's not a little kid playing with her, it's an adult playing with her. And so first off, my question is Barbie Land, where they all live, is that entirely America Ferrera's collection of Barbies, or is that supposed to be every Barbie ever made? In which case, America Ferrera has an insane collection of Barbies. And if it's every Barbie ever been made, then there's going to be 1,000 kids playing with stereotypical Barbie. So why is she only focusing on this one person? I realize, I get it. I am going way too in-depth on this silly Barbie movie. I totally understand. Why is she only being affected by this one person playing with her? Who cares? Moving on. So she goes to town and she finds out, and she goes looking for this little girl who's supposed to be playing with her. I don't remember the actress's name. I apologize. And it turns out it's not the little girl who's playing with her. It's the mother. The mother is feeling nostalgic for when her daughter and her had a better relationship and would play with toys. And so she's been playing with the Barbie and she's been designing new outfits for Barbie. That was actually a great twist. Doesn't make a lot of sense, but I really liked that it was actually the mother missing her childhood and her daughter's childhood that was playing with the Barbie, as opposed to the preteen or the teenage kid playing with the Barbies. I thought that worked really well, and I was here for it. Then you kind of move on, and you see that there's a corporation, Mattel, who makes Barbies. And I don't understand where this place is. I don't understand how this works or what's going on with Mattel. The first scene you see of Mattel is a person sitting in a cubicle, but all the cubicles are actually cubes. They don't have a roof, but other than that, they're like 5 sides of a cube. There's no doorway, which makes perfect sense if this is a kid's imagination. I thought that was actually really clever when that's what I thought was happening. A kid's imagination would hear cubicle and think all walls. They wouldn't give it a door. Cool, I'm in. Then you go in and you walk past America Ferrera, who's real, to go to Will Ferrell, who might be real, but is the most cartoony person in this entire movie. Needless to say, Will Ferrell's hit or miss in most movies, and in this movie, he is a huge miss for me. I thought he was way over the top and just didn't fit with anything else that was going on. But where are we right now? Are we in Barbie Land? Are we in the real world? Are we somewhere in between? Because America Ferrera works there, so we must be in the real world? But then, like, why are things acting the way that they are? I get that all men are supposed to be really stupid, but like at one point, Barbie is running away from Will Ferrell, which could have been really funny. Have her run like a toy would run and have them all run like people. And instead they all kind of run like toys would run, which again makes me think that we're in a kid's imagination. And they run up to each other, scream, and run past each other. Very, very Scooby-Doo. I don't understand what is going on with this movie. It was just one of those really weird things. And the fact that Will Ferrell's character didn't work for me in any scene that he was in didn't help. But it really took me out of the movie when you have things like that where it's like, what's happening? Like, where are we? Where are the lines? I apologize. It was just confusing. I think Will Ferrell's character could have been interesting. Like having the evil corporation or the stupid corporation could have been something you worked on, something you actually develop into something that's interesting. At one point, she does go in the room and ask, like, I want to talk to the CEO, and it's a man. I want to talk to the CFO, and it's a man. I want to talk to the president, and it's a man. And she's looking around the room, and it's just all men running this Mattel company, making dolls for little girls. Okay. But then you kind of move on and leave it at that. Like, why don't we go a little further there? Like, my issue with this movie, and I know a lot of people think that it goes too far, my issue with this movie is almost that it doesn't go far enough for me. Like, I kind of want them to explore some topics a little bit more. You've got, as I said, like Ken at one point is in the real world and realizes that for the first time in his life, he's actually getting respect just for being a man. That's all he had to do. And he takes that to the next level, goes to a library, actually finds books on the patriarchy, which he is fascinated with, albeit he thinks that it's about riding horses, takes that back to Barbie Land and takes over Barbie Land, turning all the women into submissive slaves, essentially. Why are we making this a Ken movie? Like, at this point, he is taking over the lead of the film. And like, I get that it's Barbie's journey to try and overcome that. But we go really deep in on Ken. He gets his own like song and musical number and stuff like that. And it was just kind of flabbergasting. It was just really interesting. Ryan Gosling has been a shining star since Goosebumps. I didn't know that he was in Goosebumps, to be perfectly honest. I know that he was a child actor, and I've seen him in a lot of young things, including that cruise show that he was on, whatever that was called. Didn't know he was in Goosebumps. Goosebumps was a great show back in the day. Totally derailed the conversation. Yep, totally derailed. The thing that I didn't really love is you've got the men taking over, and they're really stupid, and that's hilarious. I'm totally fine with that. But then the women take the power back by being conniving instead of being, well, I guess it is being clever to be conniving, but like they didn't work with the men. They didn't try and change their minds. They just kind of like distracted them by getting them all beat each other off and then did something behind their back to take their world back. I get it. Like, you want to have the women win the day. You don't want to have the men like come in and save the day for them. But like, it felt like when people complain about the feminist movement, where it's like you don't want to be equal, you want to take the power away. It kind of felt more like that. Like, instead of like, hey, let's come to the solution where everybody comes together and everybody makes good decisions. Instead, you've just got them going behind their back and winning the day that way. And it felt a little bit weird, but so be it. I didn't hit that too hard. It was just one of those like, that's kind of weird. The thing that did hit me a little bit, the movie starts off with a 2001 reference where all the little girls, and it's got an over a narrator, and all the little girls are playing with dolls. And it's talking about how up until the 1960s, when Barbie was invented, all dolls were babies because all little girls could dream to be were mothers. So all these girls play with their dolls, grow up, and become mothers, and that's all they really get to think to do. And then Barbie comes out, and the big monolith from 2001 is a giant Barbie in a bathing suit, which is apparently the first Barbie model ever made. And the girls look at that, and they're like, this is revolutionary, and they throw away their dolls, and they get angry like the monkeys do with their bones and whatnot. And it's a pretty clever scene, saying basically like, you don't have to just play with dolls and become mothers. You can become anything you want. And that's the whole point of Barbie, is she's got 1,000 different jobs. She's been a president. She's been an astronaut. She's been a scientist. She's been a secretary. Like, anything you want to be, Barbie has been, and you can be. That's the point they say they want to make. And then the end of the movie, she meets Ruth, I forget her last name, the creator of Barbie. They go to this weird existential place where it's all white, and they are talking about how she can be anything, and she can be a woman, and she doesn't have to ask permission. She can just be one. Great message. But then you have these weird memory flashbacks going on, and all of the memories, if my memory serves, were of daughters and mothers being mothers, and like kind of going back to that, there's only one thing for you, and it's being a mother. And that was really weird for me, that was kind of what they said they wanted to get away from when they made Barbie. And then when you become a woman, these are all the thoughts that are entering Margot Robbie's head, or at least that's the way they're presenting it. It really struck me and my wife as just being really counterintuitive to the whole point of the movie, or the whole message they were trying to convey. And then once she does that and she becomes a real woman, she goes back to the real world with America Ferrera. They drop her off at this place, and I'm hoping that she's going for like a job interview, or maybe applying for a university. And the first thing she does as a real woman is go to a gynecologist. Because as a woman, you are reduced to your genitalia. Like, it was just this weird, like, really? Like, the whole point of this movie is you can be anything you want to be, and the very first thing you do is that? Like, I get that it's supposed to end on a joke, but like, it just really hit me as kind of undercutting itself. right? Like, maybe I'm the only person who felt, well, no, that's not true. My wife felt that way too, but maybe we're the only people that felt that way. But it just, why don't you end that with her like, hi, I'd like to apply for the job, and then go to credits, because you don't have to know what the job was for. The whole point is it could be for anything. I don't know. It just didn't make any sense to me that that's the route they decided to take. I think that's most of what I wanted to touch on. Where's Mattel? Who is this for? I don't know. What did you guys think? Has anybody out there seen Barbie? What did you think? Does this make sense? Does this sound really off? Am I just coming across as crazy? Did I 100% miss the point of the movie? That's entirely possible. Let me know down in the comments below or in the chat. I see some people are taking over with it. Linda, I agree with Film Discovery that Frances Ha is some of Gerwig's best writing and probably her best acting performance. Mongolia, do you think Kim feel Noah Baumbach's influence in the script, or do you feel that besides being Greta's life partner, it was just a steady and seasoned hand of script writing? I don't know. I don't have a great answer for that. Feeling Noah Baumbach's influence in the script. I don't know enough of his work to say what was hers or what was his. As far as Greta Gerwig goes, I think I've only seen Little Women. I didn't see Lady Bird. I really enjoyed Little Women at the time that it came out. It's not one that I've gone back to, but I did enjoy it. I don't, off the top of my head, know any of Noah Baumbach's work to be able to say whether or not I could feel his influence in the script or not. Let's switch gears over to Oppenheimer. And this can go back to my regular shade of blue. Blue. I kind of already touched on Oppenheimer a little bit as far as what I thought about it being incredible, but maybe not quite the masterpiece that I was hoping it would be. It also released on July 21st, which, as far as I can tell, is the only reason Barbenheimer exists, is just the fact that both movies came out on the exact same day. They're so polar opposites that somebody was like, wouldn't it be a larf if we went and saw these together? And it just took off. I saw Barbie and then Oppenheimer. I think maybe Oppenheimer and then Barbie is the better way to go. End the day on a high note. Not that Oppenheimer's not a high note, but just like when you're full of tension like that, the laughs from Barbie might just feel a little bit better. So I would say do the opposite of what I did. Do Oppenheimer and then Barbie, but so be it. As I've discussed already, it came out, it made $400,000 off a $100,000 budget. It's only been 2 weeks. This movie is a hit, and it's going to continue going. I don't think it's going to hit the $1 billion mark. It's just too long and rated R, and both of those are big strikes against it. Plus the fact that even though it is Christopher Nolan, it is a 3-hour talking movie. I think he's going to hurt it eventually, or essentially at the box office. How the movie works, we've already discussed it. It takes place over 2 different time zones. I don't even know what else I was going to say. There's not as much that I can say about this one as there is about Barbie, because I don't know the story. Sorry, I'm getting really hot. I didn't know the story going into this as much. I have been listening to some podcasts about Oppenheimer post watching the movie, because I was kind of interested with his character and who he was as a person. And so it's been kind of interesting to do that. I kind of wish I'd done that before I saw the movie, like just learn a little bit more about him ahead of time, but so be it. I will say the 3 main actors in this movie, for me, were Cillian Murphy, Robert Downey Jr., and Emily Blunt. I could see every single one of them walking away with an Oscar, or at very least a nomination, when this movie comes out. Cillian Murphy, if you didn't know that it was him, I doubt you would recognize him. He disappears into this role. Robert Downey Jr., you're definitely going to recognize. And Emily Blunt took me a minute, but I did see her. But Cillian Murphy, I get that he's less of a household name than the other two, but he is so thin and older, and he just doesn't really look like himself, but he's also playing a role very different than we've seen him play, a very stoic role. This is a man who is trying to make himself a martyr. He is trying to almost hurt himself for the sins that he feels he's done, and it works incredibly well. You definitely feel his pain. What you don't feel is his brilliance, and that's a big issue for this movie. when you watch something like Good Will Hunting or A Beautiful Mind, they do a really good job of walking you through the process of how somebody gets from point A to point B and how they work their way through it. And I love that journey. There's nothing more enticing to a movie than watching incredibly smart people be competent. And while this movie definitely says that he's smart, I think you hear that he's brilliant multiple times. You don't really see him being brilliant. In fact, multiple times he also says, for all how brilliant he is, you see that he is an absolute klutz in the lab. You hear him ask other people to do math because he's not very good at it. You see scenes where he comes into a room and the blackboard is blank, and then it cuts to black and comes back and the blackboard is full. But even though you know that he wrote that on there, it just doesn't give you the same impression that even like a 2-second montage would, or like Social Network, where they write on the glass and you can kind of see their face as they're working. I know it's such a small little nitpicky thing, but it's one of those great storytelling elements that this movie tries to get away from and hurts it a little bit because of it. I wish that they'd done a little bit more to show you how intelligent this character is instead of just keep telling you he's intelligent. They tell you he's brilliant multiple times. You don't really see it. There's also, as I said, there's no release valve. There are two different quote unquote love stories going on in this movie, but neither one of them are especially romantic or you really get lost into. You don't get lost in the whimsy of them either. One is with Florence Pugh, who is a communist who he's having an affair with, and she clearly doesn't care very much for him. She does call him over to his apartment for sex every now and then, but she also like hates that he brings her flowers or tries to be romantic. And it's a very strained relationship. And then you got his wife, Kitty, played by Emily Blunt, who is hard as nails and is always trying to convince him to be a little bit tougher and like fight back. Don't allow yourself to be a martyr. She doesn't really understand what he's going through or what he's doing, despite the fact that she actually does. Like you see in the courtroom scene, she actually gets him 100%, which is actually really fascinating. That's why I think that's one of my favorite scenes in the movie, is when she's the lawyer is ripping into her or trying to rip into her, thinking that she's going to be an easy mark, and like she just gives it all back to him tenfold. Very powerful scene. Really enjoyed that. I loved that you saw one of the three, I'm going to call them judges, but I know that's not what they are, turn to his side because of her testimony, and that's why the decision does end up ultimately become 2-1, I believe, is because of her. Just phenomenal acting on her part, great script writing on Nolan's part. Really, really good scene. Robert Downey Jr. might just steal the show. I know that he doesn't have a big enough role to go for Best Actor, but he could definitely land a Best Supporting role. It's one of my favorite things in this movie is multiple times. So early on in the film, you see Oppenheimer at the Institute, and he sees Einstein out at a pond skipping rocks. And he says, "No need, like I'll don't need to introduce myself. I know the man. I'm going to go talk to him." And he goes out and talks to him without Robert Downey Jr. And then Robert Downey Jr. walks up, and Einstein won't even look at him. And from that point on in the movie, Robert Downey Jr. thinks that Oppenheimer has slighted him, and he is out to get him. He thinks they were talking about him that whole time and turned Einstein against him. He says this multiple times in the movie and is... Shut up, Tracy. Says this multiple times in the movie and is out to get Oppenheimer from that point on. I love when you actually see what that scene is at the pond, and it's not them discussing him whatsoever. They don't even bring up his name. They're discussing ideas. They're discussing the future. And Robert Downey Jr.'s character can't handle that. He can't process that. There's a famous quote that I'm going to mess up, something along the lines of small minds discuss people, big minds discuss ideas. And you see this perfectly in that moment, and it works so beautifully in the movie. It's just incredible. One of my favorite scenes, easily. Another, I don't know the actor who was playing him, but when you see Truman in the Oval Office, and Truman wants to like shake the hand of a war hero, essentially, and Oppenheimer is just haunted by all the deaths that he's caused and how the atomic bomb has gotten away from him. It's not being used as the peacekeeping bomb that he was hoping it would, that would end wars. Instead, now it's starting a new arms race, starting a new Cold War, essentially. And he hates that. And Truman turns on him. He's like, "Get out of my office. I don't want to see that crybaby ever again." It's so haunting. Like you feel angry for, not at, but for Oppenheimer in that moment. And you don't well, no, maybe that's not true. I don't know. There are parts of this movie that get your blood flowing. You're just like, this is so good. The problem is there's no parts of this movie that don't get your blood flowing. So your blood is just pumping hard, hard, hard the entire time. And it is exhausting. But nonetheless, I think that this movie is just absolutely phenomenal, worth seeing. Maybe not the masterpiece that Christopher Nolan was hoping for, or that people were hoping for from Christopher Nolan, but I could be wrong. I am one person. I will say I am actually more tempted than I thought I would be now that it's 3 days later to watch this again. I know my dad wants to see it. I might take him out to see it and check this movie in theaters again, because I don't think the at-home experience will be the same. So my opinion has already changed on it in 3 days, because when I walked out of that movie theater, I thought I will never watch this movie again. Not that I hated it, just that I don't have that much time in my life. It's a very long film. I now am kind of backing off of that, where I'm like, no, maybe I will check that out again. Maybe it's worth another view, even in the theater, paying money to go see it again, just to get the full experience. As far as this movie goes, I will say that I guess I should talk about the actual Trinity test as well. The explosion, when it happens, is incredibly powerful. And obviously the bomb is powerful. That was stupid. But like the feeling in the theater is incredibly powerful. You see the light go off, and like it goes from night to day instantly, but there's no sound except for breathing. You just get a little bit of like Oppenheimer, just like, and it's really powerful. You're just watching this explosion go up and you realize what it means for the world. And obviously the world still exists, but at that time they really didn't know if this was going to cause a chain reaction that was going to destroy the entire planet. There was a mathematical possibility that the chain reaction from this atomic bomb would never end. And that's terrifying. So in this moment where they're seeing this explosion happen, and the brightness of it and the power of it, and like, they don't say this, but in their heads, they've got to be thinking like, please slow down, please slow down, please slow down, please slow down. It's so good. And then inevitably that boom comes with the shockwave, and my wife jumped out of her seat. Like it takes you by surprise. You know it's coming, but you don't know when. And it's so good. Like it's just one of those moments. It's like, I mean, it's not at all like this, but it's like the Batmobile the first time you see it in the new The Batman, where the engine is revving and the seat is going, and you're just like, this is such a cool moment, even though nothing's really happening. That's what this explosion going off is. Like, this is such an incredibly well done, cool moment, even though it really, like, it's the culmination of the movie. It's hard to say that nothing's happening, but like, you're just watching an explosion, right? Like, for all intents and purposes, the explosion could be this big and they're just zoomed way in on it. But it's such a powerful feeling in that theater. Like, you could almost get a D-box for this movie just for that moment, just feeling your entire chair rattle, and it would potentially be worth it. Let me know if you do that. I'd be actually curious. My only real complaints are the length with this movie. Like, it was just long, and I don't know what I would cut, if anything. It might just be one of those movies that has to be long. But that is, like, you're in for a 3-hour movie, and you're probably going to be tired when you leave. Either because you're bored or because you're exhausted. I think those are the two options. I can't imagine anybody's going to leave here feeling energized. Let's see. We got some talking points that I skipped over. We've got, with this being Nolan and Cillian Murphy's 6th collaboration together, do you think they're successful together, and should they try working again? I have enjoyed him. He was obviously in the 3 Dark Knights. He was in Inception, which he did phenomenally, and he's great in this. I'm missing one. Was he in Tenet? He might have been in Tenet. Absolutely. I think Christopher Nolan has proven he likes to rework with some actors, and Cillian Murphy is one of those, up until this point, almost a hidden gem, where Christopher Nolan was using him and not many other people were, and he was using him incredibly well, very effectively. So I definitely think that they should collaborate again at some point, and I really hope this is the starting point for Cillian Murphy's like household name career. Like, I hope that he goes from this and does anything that he wants to do, including, he said he'd be very open to being Ken in a future Barbie movie. So, you know, more power to him. Bring the two together. Is Christopher Nolan's poor female character development or labeled dead wife problem an issue that has really held him back in films and needs to be addressed and changed for his future films? I mean, you get a dead girlfriend in this one, but the wife is actually a pretty strong character once she Once you get used to who she is, I think Emily Blunt does a great job, and I think she's written fairly well. She is a very strong character in a time when you don't see a lot of strong female characters, like back in the 40s and whatnot. I think she might be one of my favorite Christopher Nolan female leads. I haven't thought about that. I'll have to give that a bit more thought before I can say that definitively. If you heard me chuckle, it was just because Jesse's being a dink. Albert Einstein was definitely a Skrull. I would not want to see that crossover movie, but at the same time, it'd be kind of fun. Forrest Gump was a war hero until he drank too many free Dr. Peppers. I haven't seen Forrest Gump since it was in theater. Well, since it was freshly on DVD or Blu-ray or VHS. Ooh, that's one I definitely have to go back to. So I don't understand that reference, but that's on me. Oh, this is a good point, actually. Do you think that Oppenheimer successfully delivers a sense of weight that a person must have felt with the guilt of knowing they created something that changed the trajectory of human history? 100%. I think this movie does a very good job of doing that. I think Cillian Murphy does a great job of weighing that down. What you see for most of this movie is him almost making himself a martyr. He doesn't really defend himself per se, so much as he kind of allows people to beat him up. And that's one of the things that Emily Blunt's character, Kitty, hates him for. Like, why are you shaking this man's hand after he just spit in your face? Like, what are you doing? Why are you being so nice? And you see her fighting his battles for him to some extent. But from his perspective, he was chasing science. Like, once the question has been posed, you have to work towards finding the answer. And that's what he's doing. And he's justifying it because, well, for one, they thought they were going to bomb Nazis. And who can't get behind bombing some Nazis? For two, he thought that this was going to be... There's a quote in Iron Man, and I realize it's weird to go back to that, where he says that his dad said, the best weapon is the one you never have to use. And then he's like, oh, I think the best weapon is one you only have to use once. That's kind of what Oppenheimer was thinking. Is like, he actually wanted to invite the Japanese government to the Trinity test and just be like, look what we can do. Stop it. And hopefully that would end the war without causing a single death. And the government didn't want to do that. And then they bombed Nagasaki and Hiroshima, and that ended the war. But now you've got hundreds of thousands, if not millions of lives on his hands. And he feels that. He says in the movie, he feels like he's got blood on his hands. And he can't get it off. He can't wipe it clear. There's a brilliant scene in which he is doing a rally, and everybody in the audience is cheering their heads off. And he's dead inside. Like, he just can't handle it. And he's telling them what they want to hear. He's winning the crowd over, but he doesn't want to be there. He hates the fact that people are cheering. And apparently, like the documentary that I was just listening to, that's actually accurate. There actually was a rally where people were cheering the fact that they just bombed Japan. Like, I don't even know if the war was over at that point. Just the fact that the bomb worked and it did what it was supposed to do. People were losing their minds happy, and people were throwing up because they felt the weight of what their science had led to, the amount of death their science had led to. People will tell you that bombing Japan actually saved millions of lives on both our side and theirs. But even so, that's theoretical lives versus actual lives lost. And the movie actually does a very good job of showing you that this was not something that he took lightly, and it was not something that he wanted. Yes, he wanted to build the bomb and prove that it was possible, but it was supposed to be a peacekeeping mission of sorts. Dunkirk. No Dunkirk. Wrong. What do I think of Nolan's growing collaboration with Ludwig Göransson? I apologize for the pronunciation of that, and his scores. I think that was it Hans Zimmerman he used to work with? I think he needs to get Hans Zimmerman back. There were some pretty amazing scores back in the day, and admittedly, I've only seen Oppenheimer once, but with a gun to my head, I couldn't tell you what the song was or what the music was from the movie. And Film Rediscovery agreeing with Jesse that, Forrest Gump is a hero. So who knows? Maybe I need to check that one out in the near future. Hans Zimmer, my bad. Don't even know what I said. Let's not go back to it. Let's just move on. Maybe I do need to check out Forrest Gump again. I know that it's on my movie poster, so it will be one that I'm checking out at some point. But right here, right now. We've gone a little over the hour mark. I want to thank every one of you for hanging out with me. If you haven't already, feel free to come and join my YouTube channel, my Discord, follow me on Twitch, wherever you're seeing me right now. Just make sure that you leave a like or a subscribe if you enjoyed this kind of content. If you want more, that'd be fantastic. The best way to find me is on YouTube. The link is down below. And if you want to hit that notification bell so that you know when I go live next, that'd be awesome. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any of my content. That would be great. If you want to leave a comment down below, I will try and get back to you in the next episode. But for now, I'm just going to say have a great night and yeah, keep watching film. I don't know. I don't have a good catchphrase for the end of the show.